The calling question is really a question about the way in which we integrate our identity, our context, and the mission of God in the world that includes us, that invites us to participate in it, and is bigger than us, right? So we are going to participate in something bigger than ourselves, but we want to participate wholeheartedly as I am. So what we've asked people to do is to have a question that continually puts us in the frame of listening. The point of the question is to make us reflect at this point of your Christian journey. So not when you were 25, not when I was 18 saying yes, not when I was first called to be a pastor, when I was 27 years old, not when I said yes to the seminary and left my pastor behind. But no, at this point, how do you envision your call to God's mission in the world? And the vision part of it is literally meant to be an irony. We listen to God as God forms our imagination and a picture of how we see ourselves. So I believe listening to God's voice isn't some audible voice that speaks in the sky. It might be for some people. It's never been for me. But the way I've discovered is that God speaks to my heart, and I feel the invitation when God gives me a picture of how I can participate. This is yours to do. Ruth Haley Barton has this great moment in one of her books where she says, we all get a moment where we are like Moses, standing barefoot on holy ground and hearing God say to us, this particular task, this is yours to do. This might be for 10 minutes. It might be for 10 years. It might be the rest of your life. It might be unto death. Martyrs were called to that. But this is yours to do. So at this point of the journey, how do you envision your call? And then the reminder to it is to God's mission in the world. It's not just to your own self-satisfaction or what brings you bliss or what gives you joy. I think all those things happen. But really, calling means that you are saying yes to the invitation to give your wholehearted identity and self to the service of what God is already doing in the world, what God will be doing long after we are long dead, what God is going to continue to do until Jesus comes back and until every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, and the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever. Until then, we continually ask ourselves at regular intervals, at this point of the journey, how do I envision myself participating in what God is doing in the world? When we use that phrase, vocational agility, what we're talking about is the notion that my identity develops but is somewhat fixed. Like I am who I am, right? God has created me to be a unique person, and I have my background and my biases and the stuff that I need to grow through and develop and mature. But there is something unique about the way that I believe that our calling shows up in different circumstances in our lives. So vocational agility is the sense by the more coherent I have a sense that this is the way that God has shaped me. This is the way that God uses me. This is the way that God is at work in transforming me and growing me. It might show up in a different expression in a different context. So I often said that, I am now an associate professor for leadership formation, but I've been doing leadership formation since I was a pretty young guy. Like I can remember being in elementary school, leading a task in our school where part of my job was to train other people to do it. Like my earliest calls in ministry were to always have teams of people who part of my job was to disciple them and grow them up. I became a pastor, and my primary work as a pastor was not just preaching and teaching, but was working with my staff and my elders. So this theme of leadership formation has been all the way through my life. It has just shown up in really different ways and really different contexts. And that's one of the ways we talk about vocational agility is there is a coherence to who God is and the way and what God is doing in the world, and that there is an ability to be agile based upon your changing circumstances and different settings of life to be able to be faithful in that kind of through line that is coherent.